The world of cinema is magical, and it is one of the worlds where what happens behind the scenes is equally fascinating. The cinema industry thrives in making people believe in magic despite them having the means to understand all the tricks. And despite the premise and the promise of taking us back to the 50s, where cinema was magical, mechanical, and everything in between, Kaantha ends up as. Vanakkam and welcome to Cinema Express. This is Avinash Ramachandran, and in this video review episode, we are going to discuss Selvamani Selvaraj's Kaantha, starring Dulquer Salmaan, Bhagyashri Bose, Samuthirakani, Rana Daggubati, and a bunch of other actors. This video review will contain some spoilers. Do watch it at your own discretion. So, who doesn't want to be part of cinema? Or get that fame, the name, the money, the adulation, the respect, the following, or the high? There's also the flip side of undue attention, overwhelming criticism, lack of personal space, and never-ending trolling, etc. But still, how many members of cinema fraternity who complain about the negatives of being in the industry will ever quit? You still need the same name and fame to create a life that is seemingly untouched by the same name and fame, right? And in Kaantha, director Selvamani decides to tell the story of a handful of players who were prolific in the 40s and 50s. Kaantha begins on a rainy day in a dimly lit corridor with haunting music, an ominous figure entering the famous modern studios, a door creaking open, and two gunshots. It's a personal favorite cold open, which is wonderfully used in Sriram Raghavan's rock star debut, Johnny Gaddar. Before delving into the whodunit and who died in it, Kaantha decides to bring together all the pieces of the puzzle. We have Ayya, played by Samuthirakani, who is set to restart his once shelved dream project. There is a doe-eyed debutante, Kumari, played by Bhagyashri, who is set to play the titular role in Ayya's dream film. And then there is T.K. Mahadevan, played by Dulquer Salmaan, who returns to star in this mentor's film after having a rather public fallout due to an ego clash. But what use are the pieces of a puzzle if you aren't shown the picture they should make? The film takes too long a time to mount the clash between Ayya and TKM, the romance between TKM and Kumari, the protege-mentor relationship between Ayya Kumari and Ayya TKM, and the magic of black and white cinema. The dialogues are wonderful and they add a beautiful old world charm without trying too hard. It also doesn't alienate us from the setting by choosing, archaic lines. While we feel enamored by the visual grandeur of Kaantha and also exhausted by the world building at the same time, one might actually forget that the film began with a murder. In fact, this neo-noir film travels along in first gear for so long, and when it finally switches gears with the arrival of investigating officer Phoenix, Rana Daggubati plays a wonderful role, Kaantha is injected with much needed adrenaline. While Phoenix and Kath, played by Bhagavati Perumal, give a rather closure Reno vibe, it doesn't get explored enough because they have to get back to the murder case at hand. But it isn't like the investigative angle is perfect either. It feels rushed, the red herrings are obvious, the foreshadowing is in your face. In fact, if not for Rana's unbelievable energy, these scenes could have lucked out. Also, the investigative portions are almost contained within the confines of a film set, and it reminds me of an Agatha Christie novel where every suspect is assembled towards the end in the same room, and the detective has a field day in gradually unfurling the crime before pointing out the killer and going, "You did it." But neither Phoenix nor the audience gets this moment because Selvamani decides to remove Kaantha from the upbeat investigative film and place it right back in the first half where emotional beats were the base rhythm. Kaantha hits more than its fair share of bumps on the road and sometimes manages to stutter even when there aren't any. But through it all, Kaantha is really held together by the superlative performances of the principal cast and the superior production value of the film, courtesy cinematographer Dani Sanchez Lopez, composers Jakes Bijoy and Janu Chandar, and production design by Ramalingam. Every frame is a painting in this film. Talking about performances, Bhagyashri makes a rather stellar debut in Tamil and exudes a certain glow that was intrinsic to 50s world cinema. There is so much to like about Bhagyashri, who plays Kumari. She's so full of life despite the underlying sadness of being a woman torn between love and loyalty. In fact, there's a scene where they are filming a close-up of her and she aces the scene so well that TKM, Ayya and the rest of the film inside the film break into applause. It just felt like an extension of the audience's response to the same scene. Her styling and costumes only accentuate a performance which is so on point and stands toe-to-toe with someone like Dulquer, who has made period films his bread and butter. Dulquer's TKM is inspired by the life and times of superstar M.K. Tyagaraja Bhagavathar, be it his anger, his love, his anguish, his betrayal, his despair, his irritation, his happiness, his tears, and even his pained smiles. Dulquer wonderfully embodies the kind of acting one expects from a film of the 40s and 50s and yet makes it relevant for someone watching it in 2025. Samuthirakani displays quiet restraint when needed and grieves an outburst of bitterness stemming from a place of malice and yet doesn't turn Ayya into an antagonist. And Rana is a show stealer who gives us a police officer deserving of a spin off feature. But underneath all the gloss, the glitter, and the genre shifts, there is a film that needed to decide what it wants to be. Could this have been a whodunit right from the word go, instead of taking this unnecessary long but gorgeous detour? Should this have been a fiercer exploration of the vagaries of cinema and how history has always been written by those who held immense power? Would this have benefited from an actual Poirot meets Benoit Blanc kind of a character at the helm instead of, let's say, training all its focus on a track that engages sparingly but is kind of all over the place? And more importantly, what might have happened if Selvamani decided to bring to the fore the lore of making Tamil cinema's first horror film and painted Kaantha as a neo-noir horror with a biographical touch, almost like a slightly sobered down Om Shanti Om set in the 50s? The possibilities were limitless, but what can be done now? Forget Makale. This is Kodumbakam. That's it from this video review episode. Do like, share, and subscribe to Cinema Express, and do let us know what you thought of the film and this review. And until we meet in the next episode, this is your friendly neighborhood critic, Avinash Ramachandran, signing off. Tata!